Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Doormat Mom No More. I am Doormat Mom, where we talk about parent child estrangement, sadly enough. Try to bring to you guests that will really add to that conversation and help us figure this out a bit. And today I have a great guest. She goes by the name of Grief and Healing with Chris on TikTok. Her name is Chris Workman. And we're going to be talking with her a little bit about the God Satan element in this and the importance of community. So, but before I go in, and let me want to bring something to you. Maybe you can help this journalist. Her name is Megan Carnegie. And let me bring this up. Let me go over here. Let me do it a little smaller. Okay. So if you see that post, Megan Carnegie is out of the UK, and she is writing an article series on estrangement within families, parent-child estrangement, and other varying forms of estrangement. And she wrote originally a wonderful, wonderful piece, which ended up putting me in contact with her. It was a great piece that she did. I believe it was for the BBC or the Independent, one of the two. But anyway, she decided to expand on that piece because it was so successful and it conjured so much interest. So she's looking for estranged parents in the UK to participate. And so I'm going to drop her email into the little write-ups that we do after we tape these things that go into the YouTube video. And I'm going to drop it in there. And in this way, if you want, if you're a parent in the UK that want to participate, please send her a note. You can participate anonymously too. So there you go. Women helping women, parents helping parents. And it's incredibly important. So here we go. We are going back to Chris. So I met Chris through TikTok. She's putting out some great videos about parent-child estrangement. I wanted to learn her story, and I wanted to understand where she's coming from because she certainly has a lot of valuable insight. And I figured she'd be a great person to talk to. But before I do, I'm going to bring on a video that she did. Originally, I told her that we would be featuring another video of her. So she sort of got sideswiped when she came on the show. Not cool, I know. But the reality is, you know, I had all the faith in the world that she could dodge and weave and, and work with me. And I don't think I was wrong. So hang on. Let me get the video up and we're going to play it. And
hey there, I want to talk to you just from my heart today. I spoke to
what just happened here?
and this young lady has changed so much, like literally went polar opposite of what she was taught. It is crushing this poor mama. And it got me to thinking, this is happening all over. This woman has taken acknowledgement. She has atoned for not being perfect. She's apologized beyond measure. She has really, really worked and done the work. And this girl has gone from God to Satan, literally. And I'm just curious how many out there are having something similar. And I want to fill this post with comments for this mom. Supportive comments on how to survive each day after that happens. How can you go back into the background and allow this daughter to find her way while it's crushing every part of her being. Let's lift this woman up.
So sorry about the technical glitch. The premise of it, and I think I'm going to run the video again at the end of the episode, but the gist of it is this. This estrangement epidemic that we talk about every week, numerous of us, um, is happening across the world, first world countries. It's growing leaps and bounds, seemingly every day. And the results of this are devastating to parents who never saw it coming. They just never saw it coming. Parents who were good parents. And there's a question out there. There's a real serious question that we need to ponder. And that is this a good versus evil, a God versus Satan situation? Many people in the realm that I live believe it is. And at the end of the day, what we are dealing with is a burgeoning community that is trying to help each other grapple with the sudden loss, erasure of themselves in their relationship or their once relationship with their adult kid. It's mind blowing. And, but in trying to figure that out and in trying to support each other and lift each other up, as Chris said, we're making headway, we're making ground, and we're making the connections where we are now being heard and fighting back. So I want to bring Chris on, and we're going to talk about this. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I want to find out a little bit about your background.
Sure.
Including, obviously you're estranged from an adult child. So if you want to share a little bit about that, whatever you're comfortable with, you share. Don't go beyond what you're not comfortable with, but tell us about who you are.
Sure. So I'm a pretty open book. So professionally, I've been a nurse for almost 38 years. So a varied background as far as death and dying, as well as comfort measures. So I've done everything from home health to oncology to hospice. So you name it. So very comfortable with that. My journey really started about 12 years ago when my youngest son unexpectedly passed from an epileptic seizure. And that really changed the dynamics, but the dynamics had always been very different per se. I have two sons. So I have my younger son, Nate, who passed, and then my older son. I always try to respect his boundaries. I don't say his name. And I try to not tell a lot of his story because it's his story. So I really try to tell my side of the story because that's my truth, right? But there always have been issues for many years since he was about 8. Something externally outside of, I was a single parent. I divorced their father when they were very little. And there was something externally happened outside of my immediate home that really changed my older son's behavior. A lot of trials and tribulations through the years, expulsions, suspensions, lots of therapists, intensive outpatient, you name it. And then my younger son, very different, very sociable, very athletically inclined, just my older son, very highly intelligent, an amazing, empathetic human, but something happened. There was something that took place, and I didn't really know. And we continued to try to figure it out when my younger son died unexpectedly, it really did kind of really throw me into a whirlwind for really the first couple of years. You really have to, whether it's estrangement or grief, I believe you have to be able to walk through that fire, for lack of a better word. You have to be able to come out on the other side as a very different person, but a whole person. And so I worked really, really hard. While I think my older son took it from a different perspective. He had a very difficult time grieving the loss of his only sibling, right? And I think that's very, very common. I think I always have told my patients, you know, two people that are going to be left behind after this person has passed, neither of you are going to be on the same page every day, any day. You might be feeling this way this day, and you feel this way, and that was very evident. But our relationship continued to really struggle. I found the love of my life about 8 years ago, and I want to say that there was jealousy. I'm not sure. About a year into relationship, less than a year in relationship, my son chose to move to a completely other state and take both my grandchildren and his wife. They wanted a fresh start. Absolutely, I'm going to support that. I got engaged in the middle of planning the wedding. Both of my parents died about 4 months apart. One on hospice, the other one unexpectedly. My dad was in a horrific car accident and died from his injuries about 48 hours later. So that was in July. I got married in September. So a lot going on behind the scenes. Thought everything was fine. My older son came that week for the wedding, and something cracked that the day before the wedding. I still don't know what. I still don't know what. On the day of my wedding, we traveled about 45 minutes outside of our area to get married. And he called me when I was just about there to let me know that he had taken pills. He was going to take his own life. And that completely changed dynamics. I had a losing card that day. Do I not get married? Of the only really positive highlight of all of 2020, because we were in the middle of COVID at the time, or but I can't get into the hospital. I'm being told, nope, the wife is the only contact. You're not going to be able to get in because of COVID. I mean, all these external things. So I was really had a losing hand that day, and that really started the estrangement element with my son. He attempted
Because you
2 more
didn't,
times.
can I interrupt you? Because you
No,
didn't come to the hospital, or
I wasn't. They said I would not be
yeah,
able to get in. Yeah,
but
I couldn't get in.
yeah,
That I would be kept updated. I was told by my daughter-in-law that I would be kept updated on what was going on. He was fine. He was safe. He was stable.
okay,
I needed to continue.
right,
I talked with my husband to be about it. I talked with my bridesmaids about it. I didn't know what to do. I
right,
really didn't.
right,
And I didn't want to choose one over the other. That's not
right,
really a choice to make. But with that having been said, I was told he was absolutely stable. They were just watching him. I found out later that wasn't the case. And about 45 minutes before the wedding, my daughter-in-law actually left the hospital and came and was in the wedding. So by all intents purposes, everything must be okay because she wouldn't have left to come to the wedding if things weren't.
yeah. That's how you would
Um,
interpret that. Absolutely.
yeah, asked a lot of questions, didn't get a lot of answers. Um, we went down to see him a couple months later. Um, really, really strained relationship. Very volatile, very violent. He told me some things in confidence that made me very worried. At one point, he threw the dog across the room. Like I was very worried for my grandchildren at that point. Went to have a talk with my daughter-in-law's father, and he didn't know anything about it and said he'd check. And 20 minutes later, I got a message that said, "You're out of my life. You're trying to take my kids." So that was our first estrangement. Um, Devastated. I didn't even
Where,
know where to turn.
where did that accusation come from? Was it just a
Because I told his father-in-law that I was worried about the kids because he was throwing the dog around, and he was screaming, and he was just not in a good place. And I didn't know what to do, and I wanted to know what he thought about what we should do, to
Okay.
make this a better situation. And that
Right.
was must have been how it was interpreted. And I don't know. I'm not close with that individual at all anyway.
Right.
But I'm trying to, as a parent, really haven't make an informed decision. I wasn't going to take my grandkids away. That's not my job. Their mother and father
Right.
are the jobs. But within the middle of that, yeah, so we were estranged from, that was right before Thanksgiving. He sent me a letter. I still have the letter. Whoever goes to collect my things when I die, they'll find that letter. It's the meanest 7-page letter I've ever received in my life. I kept it. And he wanted a response, and I said, I don't need to be vengeful. I was in therapy at that point because I was literally having a breakdown. I lost both my parents. My son had done this. Life was completely different being married after 22 years being divorced. There were so many different things. Work was very stressful. And so I chose myself to go to therapy. I needed it. I needed to break everything down. And she said, you really need to write a letter back. And I said, what's it going to do? And she said, you're going to tell your story. You're going to tell your perspective. And so I did, and it did allow him to see things from a different point of view. He told me that. I flew out there. I spent the weekend with just him. We really worked on reconnecting. And I really thought things were better. I just did.
Mm.
Last year, we took both grandchildren and my son and daughter-in-law on a cruise for a week. We went, and I just really wanted some family memories. We needed to move forward with everything. And this February, it fell apart again. It fell apart in ways I didn't expect. My younger son, his very bestest friend, I call him my store-bought kid. My son had 2 of those, and I always say between food and then pretty much living at my house off and on, I paid for them, lock, stock, and barrel. So they're my store-bought kids. And one of his very, very best friend had a stroke to the brainstem, and actually himself passed away after watching him in the hospital for 3 weeks. So that was like reliving some things again.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
communication had ceased, and I wasn't quite sure. It had been very active. And then the week after Mother's Day, I got a termination of our relationship text message. And I think any parent, there's so many of us parents out there that the estrangement, it's not the first time, right? And this was the
Yeah.
3rd time, legitimately.
Yeah.
And there had been breaks throughout his growing up years. Difference was he lived with me.
Hmm.
But he gave me 5 different reasons why he was terminating this off of this mental cycle and abuse, and accused me of being physically abusive. I was not. He accused me of a lot of different emotional tangents, is the best way I can put it.
Hmm.
And the difference with this episode versus the other 2 is I didn't chase him.
I was going to ask that. I said, did you chase? Did you chase? Because
Not this time. Mm-mm.
that's proven to be a losing strategy, right? Is chasing.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and it makes sense that you would, at least the first time around, you don't want to call it so much chasing, but that's what it is reaching out and like trying to compel them to, but if it starts becoming a cycle, then you have to heed the results of that and learn from them. And in this case, your son, do you think that the mental health challenges that he was having, um,
abs-
it's like,
absolutely. There's something that happened in his past as a child. He did not tell me for 10 years. Although the relationship changed, and I kept going to doctors. Has something happened? Did somebody touch him? Did somebody do something? Somebody bullying him? Like, there's some real changes here. I don't understand what's going on. And he would tell everybody no. And then when he was 18, yeah, something happened. And so you can't, and I will not blame him for not telling me. At the same time, I can't, it's hard to be accountable for ways I reacted to a child who was a behavioral and at times violent child. I parented the best way I could
Right.
with the information and the story and the amount of information I had at the time.
Right.
So I think that that itself altered, not his fault, not my fault. It's the story, right? It's our
Right.
sides of the story. But
Right.
we really, I felt really had kind of tried to work through all of those things. We sent that individual to prison. The person went to prison for 5 years. And so there were lots of things going on behind the scenes. And I think I really thought that we had moved forward. And then the last time it happened, it broke me. I sat and cried for I found my message. I'm an early riser. My message I found it was sent during the night at some point, but I got it at 5:02 a.m. and I cried until about 9 o'clock, like 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 my eyes were almost swollen shut, like crying. And I decided that wasn't going to do me any good. He broke this, but I'm important too. And these are half truths. And instead of, Mom, these are the things that I'm really upset about, and we have to do something because we're going down a path that I just can't continue to repeat. I was blocked on everything. There
Right.
was, he wanted no response. He told me that. He wasn't looking for a response. He didn't want reasons. He wished me nothing but good luck. And I was also, all my grandkids were also removed from my ability to speak to them.
There's so much in that.
Yeah. So there's lots of layers. And I think
Yeah.
anybody that listens to podcasts, they're definitely probably drawn to something like this because they're going through something like this. And I think it's so important, whether it's good or bad or right or wrong, or the parent really has no idea it was coming, or there have been these warning signs that you really think you're addressing and you think you're working through, to find out you were never working through those. At the end of the day, you have to survive this.
One question: did he
Yeah.
resent you um, a bit for not knowing? Yeah.
I, I
Makes
that's a
sense.
really good question. I've always told him, and he said I was wrong. I felt like I was collateral damage.
Mm. Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
I was the one disciplining. You know, when you're suspended 26 times between
Right.
6th grade and 8th grade for the same behaviors, and you're trying to go from therapist to therapist to find somebody that's stuck,
Right.
which we finally did. He finally found the best psychologist in the world, who I wish wasn't retired, but he is. And he really made him work through those things. So I'm not sure what in the last few years has backslid. I think there's some jealousy component maybe, and I'm not trying to assume, but it's really hard as a parent when you're cut off, because you sit and think about every conversation, every memory, every way you handled something. And I don't care who you are, if you sit and do that, you are going to find, even if you are almost a saint, you are going to find things that you could have done and should have probably done different. But the difference is you have the information you have now, not the information you had back then. And I know, as logic, I did absolutely the best I could. I was raising an epileptic who had lots and lots of seizures, and it finally took his life. I was raising a kid that was out of control. I had an ex-husband who, I can't even use the bad enough words for him. And I like to cuss. Let me tell you, I'm trying to mind my P's and Q's today, but I don't even think there's cuss words out there for him. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I like the F word. I believe in the F word. If you watch my videos, they do slide in once in a while. I believe they all have a purpose. My brother, let me tell you, girl, my brother was the Marine, and my dad always said, Your brother became the Marine and you got the Marine mouth. And that is true. And I'm doing it. I'm okay with it. But I think you have to really, at the end of the day, know that I can't control any of the decisions he made, but
No,
I don't have to support them.
no, I think that's it. I think, but that doesn't play well. It does not play well. It does
Not
not
for
play
me.
well. No, it doesn't play well in general, because
No.
the that one of the pieces of the narrative that's streaming, that's causing this epidemic, I believe, is that not only do you have to um, allow for it, you have to hear it, and you have to digest it, but you have to support their version. You have to. And if you don't support their version, then you're being narcissist. I'm going to be Sean Hannity right now because he does it all the time. I'm going to be narcissistic, toxic. You're going to be, impossible to deal with. You're going to be wrong. You're going to be everything. You're going to be a parent that's all about themselves, um, and um, and that's it. And ultimately, you're going to be estranged because you're not yes, 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 and my truth is actually the truth you give me to believe, right? You can't have your own truth, you can't have your own version. um it seems in these days, and that gets swirled in the mix with all of the other external influences that are happening out there. You talked about, mental health. I put mental health under the category of Satan, right? Because I think that Satan definitely, in an instance, if you have to think about what Satan will use, mental health will be one of those to separate parents from their children. I think another thing that obviously technology is adding to this. I think, now let me caveat this. There are some incredible therapists out there, incredible mental health professionals. There are. I mean, but they're a very small portion of that group, in my opinion. There's a very the larger population isn't doing the parent-child relationship any favors, and in fact, they're driving them apart further, it seems. And then there's just the societal influence that's happening, the peer groups. There's a biological reality, the emotional reality. The influencers, the social media influencers that are, you mentioned in one of your videos, and I wrote about it this week in a piece, where you basically get a fan club for cutting off your parents. And what's ironic about it, and this is actually the piece that I wrote, I'm getting outreach from therapists and pastors that are coping with this in their own homes, and they can't control it in their own homes, and they're darn well not going to share that with their patients or the outer world, because a big fear is, well, if I can't control it in my own home, how am I going to advise other people how to control it? So that's another thing that I think Satan is using. And I look at it as, I do believe there's a God Satan element in this. And I put those all under that category. It's a real problem. And then your own value as a parent depletes, because you built your world around that child, being a good parent, being there. And no matter how much you did right, that gets well overshadowed to the mistakes you might have made as just a good parent. And we're not talking about parents who actually were abusive. But we're talking about parents who didn't cause harm, who really did, sacrifice themselves for their children, love their children and whatnot. But then it also gets into the narrative, like what is abusive. So I'm gonna throw that to you. Like, what do you consider an abusive parent?
Well, I think I love where you're going with that, because I think initially I was never going to do TikTok. Okay. Who would do TikTok? I don't have time for that. Right.
Right.
And so when I did decide to do TikTok, it was literally to talk about grief, loss of a parent, of a sibling, of a spouse, and most of all of a child, right? Because there's symptoms of grief. So I threw an estrangement post out, and I did a live, and it blew up, and I was like, and I was very, very new to it. It was the third time, but I was very new to it, and I thought, what is going on? And when I really got my education was with the vile comments from estranged children. And I mean, there's all those buzzwords you talked about a little bit, the narcissism, right? Abusive. And so I think when we look at those words, I'm a nurse, so I'm very research based, and I'm analytical sometimes to a fault. And I'll say, if you could pull your head out of your ass for a minute, you would realize that the definition of those words, especially gaslighting, the word gaslighting, are not reflective of what you're using them for. So what is your definition of abuse? And it is so layered and so dispersed depending on who you talk to, whether it's physical abuse, the parent was a drug addict, they were an alcoholic. It always interests me when you see those components going through, and the parent has atoned. The parent has really worked through. They don't know what else to do. They've done everything, but give them their blood and all of their money for the rest of their life. And there's other children in the family who are still, they've worked through, and they're still close with their mother or their father. It could be either parent.
Right.
So what is a true definition of abuse? I call it the participation trophy generation.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. You gave your kid too much. You didn't give them enough. You hovered too much. You didn't seem to care too much. I have heard, we have a Zoom support group off of a Facebook group, which is 3 months old and has almost 4,400 members. It's just ridiculous how many are out there. But when you talk to these parents, they had no idea it was coming. And they're being told that their kids said, well, you didn't respect my boundaries when I was 10.
Right.
So what abuse, I think, is in the eye of the beholder, unfortunately. It's not, yeah.
I think in these days, I think so many of the young people that are claiming abuse and throwing their parents into the category of real abusive parents, parents who have beaten their kids and have put their kids in situations where they end up being feeling unsafe being in the presence of the parent, or things like that, right? Things like that really just left a traumatic scar on that child, where it's now impacted them. And I can go on and on in that realm too. But we're not talking about those parents when we're talking in this forum and in my Facebook group and TikTok, what have you. And I get the TikTok thing because I wasn't going to do it either. And then when I the first video I came out with just blew up, and that then it sent me into the next but stratosphere. But man, to these young people that are basically just talking about situations that might have been uncomfortable, or maybe they didn't like what a parent decided, or maybe the parent said, yeah, you don't get that participation trophy because you didn't win, and that's okay. I mean, maybe a Christian or whatever, but that's okay. That's just a life skill.
Right, exactly.
And I think that they're now getting grouped into that I call what you just described a catch basin. It's a catch basin. It's all in there, and you just decide what it is for you, and then you go ahead and use it, and then you separate yourself away from your parent. And And I'm going to go back to the God side of this, is I think a big part of this. And I actually believe, got my Charlie Kirk shirt on, because I really truly do believe in my heart that a lot of the young adults that he was speaking to, who were this just terrifying, dancing on his grave after his, unfortunate assassination, and who were also meeting him at those events and challenging him. I think a lot of the young adults that are going estranged from their parents are the same audience that he was dealing with, and I really do think that the recipe that he had, where um, you know, giving your child a foundation, um, even what if faith, a faith, of God, at least you have a foundation in a way that provides a recipe book for the future for you to look back on every time you come to a problem, historical accounting, historical backup for that book. Instead, having now become a society that really doesn't, I mean, the majority of which doesn't, seem to even, want any part of God in it. Well, where's the God now? Where is the God? Well, the God is in therapy. That's the God. The God is in social media. The God is their peers. The God is the ego. It's all of it. And I think all of that peer pressure, that outside voice that wants to be their God, because um, it's, not only does it keep them in business in many cases, but it pays their bills, or it gets them friends that, they wouldn't even know if they met on the street, but they, they're best friends on, all these social media platforms. That has become their God. And
They're
that's why
technology warriors. They're technology
technology,
warriors.
yeah, I mean, technology is huge. I don't know if you saw this, but I saw this. Um, many teachers are now complaining. Did you see those videos? Many teachers are now complaining. Kindergarten teachers are now complaining, and they are complaining because the 5-year-olds they're getting are not potty trained by the time they get to kindergarten. Now, my kids were potty trained by age 2, right? I'm sure your kids were
exactly
early,
yep.
right? But they're not potty trained. They don't know their ABCs. They don't know their 1, 2, 3s. They don't know their colors. And they will not listen to any sort of direction. They will not listen to any sort of behavior modification. They will not, they will not. So you're corralling like, angry cats. You're corralling angry cats. And it was very interesting because when the question came around, like, why do you think this is? Some are saying it's a first generation of COVID, but it's been happening now for the last 2 or 3 years, right? So it's like, well, why was that? And I have to tell you, the first thing I thought of when I looked at the rest of the comments on this, so many other parents came out with this. And it's the result of the tablet generation. We think we're educating them on how to, but at the same time, you've got parents who are on their phones all the time, or they're working because they're trying to keep up with the economy all the time. So they're working from home or they're working out of the home, right? And technology, the babysitters have become technology. All right. Honestly, the world opens up to them in a way that they should not have it opened up to at that age. All right. Which is very sexy to them in a sense, if you allow for it. And it does happen. If you're not, you don't have your eyes on your kid all the time. Right. So it's tech in many cases. It's tech that has become their God from the ground up. And that it's causing a delay in just basic life skills, and it's driving them to assume roles in their own lives. They're parenting themselves. The parent is checked out, and sometimes the parent is just on their phone all the time because they're so overtaxed that they're trying to decompress, and it's constant stimulation. And what happens when you have constant stimulation? constant stimulation, and that becomes your panacea, right? Constant stimulation. And because we're in this theme, the one thing I know is God is found in the quiet. God is found in the halls of your soul when it's quiet. You who you truly are is found in the quiet, right? Um, and so you don't give these kids quiet. So they're unable to even know who they are. They're not finding God, especially if they're not in a household that with God, so to speak. And they're on these devices that are making them crazy. And now they're making the teachers crazy because they have no. But I mean, what are you going to do? Change every 5-year-old in your classroom? That's ridiculous.
It
So
used to be that you couldn't go to kindergarten unless you knew how to tie your shoes.
yeah, now unfortunately,
With
sports.
Velcro.
Yeah, oh my God, we've got all of the band-aids. We keep band-aiding over the issue, right? Um, and our kids are now starting out. I hate to say it, but I'm going to say they're starting out at a behind the 8 ball, and they're not getting any smarter as they're going up. But they can run circles around you on their phones. They can run circles around you with AI. They can run circles, but the basic premise of becoming a good person, faithful person, um, a an intelligent person, a caring person, a person who cares about the other person as much as they care about themselves, right? A respect filled daughter and son, a steward of the relationship with your grandparents, and really taking in the wisdom from that generation too. That's all being thrown away out of under the guise of, and we're really becoming enlightened. We're evolving. No, we're evolving backwards. We're evolving backwards. Does not see it? And this is what's saying it from the ground up now.
Well, look at the themes, though, that we see on a daily basis on any technology platform. It doesn't matter which one you look at. Number one, how many parents do you hear say, that's not how my child was raised? They were raised to go to church. They were raised to be kind to others. They were raised to, I could go on and on and on. The second theme that I see a lot from unfortunately, from the adult estranged children is, I don't owe my parent anything. I didn't ask to be born, and they're just another person. And then the third layer is the lack of traditions and the lack of moral being, in my opinion, as well as an identity of who you are in the family from previous generations. I decided a while back, if this is going to be permanent, and at least until my grandchildren, who I'm fortunate, my grandson's 13, and he's always told me I'm his person and he wants to come and live with me when he goes to college. I don't know, maybe he'll be brainwashed before then. And my granddaughter who's 10, I don't, they're not itty bitty, right? I don't have that many years, but do I want to do an email so that I can just email them things throughout the next few years of, things that are happening, pictures of new family members, pictures of things that happened, memories I have from my parents, because at some of those points, those memories are gone if they're not captured by me to be able to pass on. And those themes of really the dichotomy of that have changed within the social aspect. Is it because of social media? Maybe. Is it the me situation? Possibly. Is it, I always want to be ahead and I want every new thing. How many of these younger kids are house poor because they have the new car, the new phone, the new everything?
Yeah.
Although I saw a statistic not too long ago, I think actually my husband told me about it, and it was the alcohol consumption has gone down in the younger generation.
Mhm.
And that's because they want something instantaneous and they're actually looking more at drugs, quite honestly, rather than the alcohol. So the alcohol industry is making less money and losing money based upon generational things. I mean, all these things come into play,
Right.
but how many people, when you look around, if you ask other people, how many of those people either A, believe in God, and I'm not even saying go to church.
Right.
Some people don't find the right church. Some
Right.
people, their schedule, like whatever. But if you have that inner core belief that was established as a child,
Right.
that's still going to be in there. And unfortunately, society is trying to cancel that out, in my opinion.
Well, I think so too, and I think that well, look, you're not going to go to church every day, but if you have God in your life, you're going to integrate Him in your life every day, because that's just you're going to be your normal way, right? You're going to live it out. You're going to, in some way, shape, or form, you'll do that because that's where you find your peace. And in these days, you really do need peace. But I can't agree with you more. I think that we're really on a trajectory that's only going to get worse with estrangement. I think division will get worse. I think, but as we're navigating this, um, I think that what we're doing as parents, is we're helping clarify the situation for each other, and through our lived experiences in the speaking. And there was a very long period of time where no one it spoke about this, because there is such a shame. It's a prodigal son, right, all over again. There's such a shame, there's such a silence, and it only spreads in silence, right? And so I really think that by building this community, and talking about these stories and all their good, bad, and ugly, right? Because we know some situations where the child wasn't well taken care of, and the parent has atoned and they've asked for forgiveness, and you want to think that there's grace, but there's not always grace sometimes, and that's just a reality. And but in the cases where that isn't the case, and the parent was a really good parent, and the kid walks away, whether it be over a period of time, or in many cases literally overnight, um and they're left wondering where their kid just went. um you know eh, in speaking about it, we can at least gain some resolution within ourselves, right? And because we lose our value when our children walk away, and you do think, and you brought the very good question up, a fallacy in one of your other videos, that kids don't walk away from good parents. Yeah, they do. In this society, they do. Today's estrangement is not like yesterday's. The parameters around it are not like yesterday's. They're not living in our basement, or they're not working on the farm without any interaction out in the outside world, where the only element in the room is you. There's so many other elements. And it's been proven that after age 7, your influence goes way down, and all these other elements go way up. And yeah, you could come out with a kid under the right conditions, in the right frame of mind, um, who all of a sudden goes estranged, and you're like wondering what the heck happened, and then you get the blame because the parent always still gets the blame. So it's like, we moved in the blaming, we've moved forward, but in the excuses, it's still always the parent, when it's not. It is
When
absolutely not.
I think as the parent, the thing that I try to get, I like to do videos that get people to thinking, and it's fine if it gets the kids to want to comment. That's fine. I can do the same. I can delete and block you too if you're violent or you're nasty to my parents that are on the site wanting a safe place. You can leave, but if you want to have a good conversation, let's have a good conversation. But I think it's important to remember. I'm always saying this. I'll ask people, God, we're not record, but you cannot control the narrative or the story that your child wants to tell.
You can't.
You can't, and you can't change it. And the only thing you can do is work on you. And I'm not saying you have to fix whatever it is they say that's wrong, because that may not be the truth. You
Right.
need to work on you to work to a place where you're happy. There's so much grieving that is similar with actual physical loss and estrangement. A lot of those symptoms are very similar. The difference is society says, oh my gosh, you lost so and so for a period of time. Society's not very comfortable with uncomfortable, but
Right.
it's the shame element that parents are really struggling with. And that's why they don't want to have that conversation. But in the real truth, at the end of the day, as far as I know, both you and I were people before we had children. I didn't hatch the day my child was born. I had goals, dreams, aspirations, a voice, desire. I had it all.
Right.
And as we're talking about involved parents here, I'm not talking about the abusive parents either. The involved parents who are doing the best they can with the circumstances that they have really give up everything for the completion of their children's childhood.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they still have to work. They have to do all these things. There's all these external factors, right? But you
Right.
really do think about how many parents, who are their friends? They're the parents of their kids' friends. It's the families of the sporting, of the debate, of the cheerleading, whoever it is, you surround yourself around the life of your children. And when children, even as adults, you're still the grandma now. You're still the mom. You're walking on the eggshells because you just want it to work. I'll own that. I was walking on eggshells I didn't know that I was doing, just because I just wanted those little scraps. And when it's said and done, guess what? I'm a really good person and I deserve happiness. And it's now my time for my voice. And that's what I want estranged parents want to know. You can be sad, but you can be happy at the same time. They really can live together. We're just not going to change these children, whether they've decided they don't want to go to church. They'd much rather dress in black and they want to do, satanic um, ceremonies. Okay. It makes no sense to this parent who's very, very religious and is just devastated and is spending their waking hours praying for their child. That's not, unfortunately, going to change anything. We've got this thing called free will. We just do.
Yeah.
And so I think we just really have to, like you said, you nailed it, support each other and remind each other, fucking amazing.
Yeah. 100%. And you know what? I'm going to make a comment to that and then we're going to go. But you're not supposed to force your child to come to God. You have to, that free will is the pathway, right?
Absolutely.
And so if they want to dress in black, and do what? Yeah, keep an eye on them, but you can't force someone into a church. You can't force someone to give their soul to the Lord and Savior. You can't force any of that, right? You can't, and you're not supposed to. All you can do is show the way, and that's it. And yeah, the support is imperative, and that's what I'm going to ask you to also maybe you can help support Megan, who is the journalist for this article series, and maybe post, post the call to action for, because she's trying to do some good stuff on the other side of the pond for estranged parents. So maybe you can post it in your own Facebook group or own, and see if there are any UK parents who
Oh,
can add to that conversation. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna drop that information below. But if you could do that, that would be great too.
absolutely. I am always surprised, and I think most estranged parents are surprised, excuse me, when they're going through this, how many others there are. When
Oh
we started having weekly Zoom support calls so that it could be in a very safe, intimate
yeah,
atmosphere for these people, I was shocked at the amount of UK parents. I'll be honest.
yeah. Oh, UK
It's,
parents, UK, Canada,
oh,
Australia.
huge. Yes.
Oh God, yeah, Australia, Germany, Ireland. I'm getting people as far as Asia.
Hmm.
I'm getting. I mean, every day the Facebook group grows.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in the high thousands too, and every day it grows, and it just mind boggles me how um, the stories that come out, the pain that comes out, you know, it's just really so painful to go through, and it's a tragedy. It's a breakdown of our society. I think it's by design, because an unhappy society is a very controllable society. Unhappy people are very controllable people. And so that brings to another conversation. Is there is it a gain politically? Is there a Marxist, communist, socialist reason? All those things that come into play, and I think there is too. But anyway, that's a larger conversation, one for another time. And I think that's the one that you and I could have very well. Maybe we'll invite Candy.
There you go. There you go.
A three-way conversation. And one of my friends, Andy, who used to be a pastor, and he's a great orator too. So all right, well, I'm gonna let you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
I knew this would be a great conversation. I knew you could pivot, and
oh yeah,
and you're so great on you're so great on video that I appreciate that. So
well, thank you very much.
I will make
good content. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you do well. I'm going to send you all the links and everything. Once it's all live and everything, please share wherever you
absolutely
like.
Yes.
And come back. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All righty. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
So she is great. I love these incredible conversations that we have with brilliant people who are going through it. Unfortunately, this is happening, and it's happening to a lot of great people. So if you don't think it can happen to you, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. Don't discount it. All right, I'm going to show you here my book, Doormat Mom No More. You can get it on Amazon. It's got some great reviews. And please pick it up. Please read it. It'll share with you the importance of having this community around you. It'll share with you my own personal story so that you understand how I came to this point. And you'll learn a little something that you probably don't know, especially if you're new to this and you thought you were all alone. There's a lot of camaraderie and relevance in what we're all going through and feeling, especially, with regards to what Chris said about grief. When someone dies, people are very supportive for at least a period of time. When a child goes estranged and the loss happens, they're a lot less supportive than the average person because they don't consider it a real loss, but it is a real loss because you're cut off from someone who you love and is still walking this earth. So, you got to leave that in God's hands. But in any event, get the book if you can. Amazon. I priced it low so that everyone could get it. And we're gonna bring that off. That's it. I'm gonna see if I can't run that video again. Before we go, let me see if I can add it to the stage because I do want you to see the totality of it. But if not, oh, you know what? I'm going to run another video of hers because I saw it this morning and I loved it. And I think it's something that we need to talk about. So I think we just mentioned it also on this episode. So let me go over here. I think it's... I'm going to do this one. I think it might be this one.
Are you ready to bust one of the most damaging lies estranged parents hear? Let's do it. Let's talk about it. One of the most damaging lies that estranged parents hear over and over and over: kids don't leave good parents. It's just not true. Good parents get cut off. Loving parents get blamed. And sometimes it's therapy, sometimes it's pressure from outsiders. And sometimes it's a story that got twisted. It's two sides of the same story. But the lie makes parents, well, feel like villains in their own story. And if you've ever been told, well, you must have done something wrong because kids don't leave good parents, just remember that doesn't erase your story, that doesn't erase your love, and that doesn't make it true. Are you ready to bust?
Doesn't make it true. All right. That's a whole other episode. But it's a great piece. As I said, she's wonderful. So Deep in Healing with Chris on TikTok. Find her and come back to Doormat Mom No More on the next episode. We have more great guests talking about estrangement from very different angles. But in every episode, you're going to learn something. And if you're an estranged parent, you're going to find some comfort. I guarantee that. So until next time, I'm Doormat Mom, signing off. God bless.